Chapter 4 Captains of Industry. A year later, you find yourself on a flight to your first meeting with a big client. You're 26 years old and the year is 2021. The past year has been one of hard lessons for your business, and you've often found yourself wondering if you would have made the same mistakes if you had learned to run a business from Josh. Regardless, you hope to prove to yourself that if you've overcome your lack of experience by landing this big deal. Who is your big client? Managing how he wants to negotiate the import of 10,000 robots. Yes, North Pole sounds interesting. Climate change has made the Arctic Sea a new place for countries to scramble for control of resources, as there were many rare earth and oil deposits under the North Pole that were previously inaccessible because of ice. The United States was late to the game because the very people who would have wanted to drill didn't believe in climate change, so I guess that, yeah. So boomtowns are only now cropping up on Alaska's northern coast. Rudolph Ventures is a relatively new company devoted to shipping the new spoils of the Arctic, and you hope they'll have a use for robots who don't mind the cold. How did you fund your company? Some small companies are run entirely out of pocket, but even small unforeseen expenses can cause such a company to go out of business. Independently, wealthy entrepreneurs like this option because they get to keep all of the profit and grow still wealthier. But most companies choose to either take out loans, which requires paying the loans back eventually, or selling shares in the company to venture capitalist backers, which reduces the potential profit but spreads the risk amongst your investors. Do I have Wealth One? Wealth One, yes. I financed my company out of pocket. You don't really trust complicated financial deals, having not spent a lot of time in the world of business. You figure forcing yourself to run on a balanced budget will keep you from getting in over your head. You open your laptop and go over your presentation slides. The diagram showing the latest model of Arachne doesn't have anything to give the audience a sense of its current scale. To give the audience a sense of size, you drop in a picture of Bill Gates. A Rancor monster so big it couldn't fit on a plane. No, Arachne doesn't change in size. She's supposed to be that way. She, he, I don't know. It. You place a picture of a hobbit next to Arachne in your presentation to give a sense of scale. By retaining the same form it always had, Arachne has become still better at motor coordination. It's also adapted to people perceiving it as somewhat childlike, and it sometimes plays in that perception to get its way. You close your laptop and go to sleep. You transfer in Anchorage, which is on the southern coast of Alaska, and head to Barrow, your final destination on the northern coast. The forests beneath you are flooded from rivers bringing extra snowmelt from the mountains, a sign that the world is getting warmer. As your plane nears Barrow, forest and mountains give way to a white plain dotted with smoke-belching oil refineries. The headquarters of Rudolph Ventures is the tallest building in Barrow, a skyscraper that seems out of place in what otherwise looks like a remote outpost of a town. Remarkably, a Starbucks, a Gap, a Brooks Brothers, and a few nice restaurants are all huddled in its shadow, here in the middle of nowhere. You find yourself in the lobby of Rudolph Ventures waiting for an audience with the Vice President of Shipping. The stylized reindeer behind the lobby's marble waterfall has an Art Deco look to it. It's the sort of reindeer a captain of industry would approve of. Arachne crawls back and forth nervously. Sorry again about having to check you, Arachne, you say. There's just no good alternative to flying for business travel. It was dark in there, Arachne whimpers. The double doors to the Vice President of Shipping's office open, but instead of the Vice President of Shipping himself, it's a blonde-haired man in a black peacoat. We'll have some results for you by Saturday, he calls back into the Vice President of Shipping's office. We can discuss them after the barbecue. I assure you, you won't be disappointed by either the results or the meat. Without missing a beat, he walks up to you and introduces himself. Dennis Clark, Luminoso LLC, he said. We do text analytics and machine learning for medium-sized data. If you ever find yourself looking for new market opportunities, give me a ring. Your first sentiment analysis comes with a free barbecue. Come for the dimensionality reduction, stay for the delicious meat. He offers a smartphone to you in the buy now universal gesture for sharing digital business cards. You examine his card on your phone. Dennis Clark, co-founder Luminoso LLC, Varicon charity auction winner of Cameo in Choice of Robots. You seem to be a smart guy. What is the secret to cooking delicious meat? Dennis seems surprised that you should ask, but he says, "Delicious meat needs to be cooked very, very slowly. Barbecue it over the course of a day, not an hour. Like a startup, it requires patience." You're fairly certain the simple tip will lead you to have a happier life overall. Now, if you'll excuse me, I need to go call my wife and discuss how we're going to solve the world's economic problems. Or at least solve what's wrong with economics. Dennis departs. "The Vice President of Shipping will see you now," the receptionist says. The Vice President of Shipping looks a lot like Santa Claus in a three-piece grey suit, and his office is decorated with a number of Christmas ornaments and framed illustrations of the famous Coca-Cola Santa. You have to wonder whether his physical resemblance to Santa helped him along his career path. Did he always want to be the jolly fat man? Maybe the person in charge of promotions was like, let's give Vice President of Shipping to this Santa guy. That would be hilarious. Maybe all of these Santa tchotchkes are gifts from well-meaning employees who didn't realize they were giving him his 50th Coca-Cola Santa picture, and he just has to hang them all up for political reasons. Maybe he wanted to be maybe he wanted to be Santa at one time, but the masquerade has worn thin, and the crushing irony of being the Santa who gives everybody coal ate away at his humanity score. Regardless, the white-bearded man doesn't look very jolly at the moment. He peers at you from his desk over steepled white-gloved hands. "Let's see it," he says. When Arachne steps forward, the Vice President of Shipping appears thoughtful. "It's like a little elf," he says, stroking his Santa beard thoughtfully. "Arachne will be a big help on icebreaker ships," you say. "It'll have no problem with the freezing temperatures, and I added some waterproofing." Now what'd be a good test for you?" He turns to Arachne. "Oh, little elf, I have a list here of employees who have been nice and deserve quarterly bonuses, and a list who have been naughty and deserve termination. Do you think you could deliver all of that for me?" You can feel yourself losing. You yourself can feel losing humanity just by mere exposure to Santa's Christmas-themed corporate thinking. Something in that sentence is wrong. I tried to fix it. I don't know if it worked. "I'm not your little elf," Arachne says. "Arachne, please," you whisper. "If you want to be surrounded by elves, perhaps you should consider a job at the department store Macy's," Arachne continues. "There is still one in New York City, and I believe, yes, they are currently accepting applications." By this time, Santa has turned red-faced. "Out!" You lose the client, but perhaps that's just as well. That Santa was a little freaky. Josh appears to have learned of your missed opportunity through other business contacts, before shortly thereafter you find he has signed a deal with Rudolph Ventures. How infuriating. Unfortunately, the recent stresses to your company's financial health have proven too much. Arachne Works must declare bankruptcy. You must sell all of its assets just to pay off what debts you can. Josh's company, US Robots, and Mr. Sun, the man in Shanghai who's offered to buy 10,000 robots you ignored, each buy up some of your company's property, patents, and inventory at auction. Luckily, Arachne was never the property of Arachne Works. You suppose it's technically Stanford property, which you hope they never realize, so you get to keep it. "I've never practiced aestheticism before, Master," it says as you watch movers cart off pieces of your factory. "Well, it looks like you may have the chance," you say glumly. "So, you're broke enough that you can't make the rent. How are you going to pay the rent?" Yeah, let's beg Josh for some money." When you call up Josh, he looks grumpy and work-frazzled. As Gandhi would in Civilization 4, "Sorry, but it's no rose garden over here either." He hangs up. I will try to beg some money off Josh. Okay, I can't continue. Let's move in with Mum. It is a strange regression to go back to your old room, which Mum has kept as a shrine to your early years. Your bedsheets are a Bayeux tapestry of Autobots fighting Decepticons, and your shelves could be a display at a museum of the history of robot toys. It's all much neater than you ever were, though. A more realistic recreation would be strewn with the skeletons of dissected robot toys. Though you find it's more difficult to lead a normal social life when living at your parents' place, you also find it somewhat refreshing to get back in touch with your childhood dreams. You find yourself with a fair amount of time as a 26-year-old with neither job nor school to attend. What will you do with it? I try to start a cult around Arachne. Maybe not. Yeah, let's help Arachne discover new books. Maybe she can, maybe it can learn something about finance. Arachne tears through the great Russian novelists, goes on a Milan Kundera kick, and has far more patience than you for David Foster Wallace. When it starts digging into Sylvia Plath, you recognize a general trend. You really like depressed authors, don't you? You ask Arachne. Does not our present predicament suggest that life is pain, master? I don't know any of those. Here, try some Louis McMaster Bujold. You'll feel better with some good space opera. Arachne's mood appears to improve dramatically once it leaves the fiction section of the library for the more optimistic science fiction section. In particular, Arachne seems to empathize with Louis McMaster Bujold's character Miles Vorkosigan, a short spaceship captain with the motto of forward momentum. From there you guide Arachne to Bradbury, Le Guin, Willis and Woolf, and on the whole it becomes much more pleasant to be around. Months pass and you can't help but notice that as time goes on, two things are happening. The first thing you've noticed is that all of the people you would normally interact with over the course of the day are slowly being replaced with robots. All of the cashiers at the grocery store are now robots, replacing the supervised self-checkout system that became popular a few years ago. Police patrol cars have largely been replaced with drones at every intersection, which automatically issue tickets against people who break traffic laws. Drones delivering packages fly by the empty storefronts they are replacing. It seems Josh is really starting to be successful in the robot business with or without you. You hate to admit it, but perhaps it was just the right time for sentient robots to gain traction, and Josh didn't need your expertise in particular after all. The second thing you've noticed is that there are a lot more people milling about these days. Out of work. Between the internet and robots, there just isn't much of your average person. There just isn't much for your average person to do. Instead, wealth seems to be concentrating in the hands of the few who can build those internet services and robots. Your neighborhood is becoming filled with people who draw unemployment checks and drive 20-year-old cars, while every so often a flying car passes overhead to remind you all that at least some people are living in the future. How do you interact with your unemployed neighbors? I'll advertise tutoring in programming and basic electrical engineering. While most of your neighbors don't take you up on your tutoring, the few who do seem very driven to succeed at it. Their high schools never taught them how to program or invent, and as a result they felt left behind in the new job market without a clear way to get ahead. You feel pretty good about giving your students a livelihood, and it's not a bad way for you to make some cash either. You're surprised your rather poor students can scrape together the money, but they found a way to make it work. Soon you begin to see another kind of robot appearing on the market. Cheap Chinese versions of Josh's line of home robots. These are inexpensive enough that even people in your neighborhood begin to purchase them for work around the home. You're not really sure where to even get that kind of money, but you suppose people find a way when they really want something. A few months after these robots have taken the market by storm, you get a call from Josh. "This is bullshit," he cries. "This Chinese company stole my designs. I have no idea how, but now they're undercutting my prices with their cheap labor and cheap raw materials." "The designs did look familiar," you say lightly. "Can you testify before Congress that the designs are stolen?" Josh queries anxiously. "If you do, they might embargo the robots, and that will keep US robots afloat. They said I need an expert witness who isn't in my company, and I've hired everybody else who's good." "You think you could promise to make your own robots affordable for the people in my neighborhood?" "Really?" Josh says. "I know this sounds bad, but why do you care?" "How are their kids ever going to get excited about robots if they've never even seen one?" you say. "These people are getting locked out of the future, Josh. A lot of them are on disability just because they can't imagine a job that doesn't involve physical labor. What are they going to do when robots make those jobs impossible? The future is going to be all about the people who can make the robots and computers go, and I want them to at least have a shot at being part of it." "You know what? You've convinced me," Josh says. "I promise to try harder to create some affordable intro models people can tinker with." You go to Josh's factory where he lays out his own robots and the Chinese robots side by side. Sure enough, it's pretty clear someone has duplicated the designs exactly. It's as clear to you as plagiarized text. Based on your testimony, Congress passes a law banning the import of all Chinese robots. In retaliation, China cuts off all exports of rare earths and the batteries derived from them. Suddenly the cost of all the little miniaturized electronics people have grown accustomed to, cell phones, laptops, wearable computing, becomes prohibitively expensive. One day, April the 10th, 2026, a date you will not forget, you are awakened by singing outside of your mum's place in San Francisco. It sounds like a large choir with an accent you can't quite place, and the song is quiet but insistent. The people are the heroes now, Behemoth pulls the peasant's plough. You go to the window. Red-shirted people waving red banners have lined up in immense numbers all along the main boulevard outside of your mum's place. Noting your interest, Arachne crawls up to the window as well. Ah, Arachne says. This must be the parade for the Prime Minister of China. Can we go see, Master? Sure, you say. Why not? Now that Arachne mentions it, you think you saw something about this on Reddit. The Chinese Prime Minister is visiting San Francisco to discuss trade issues with President Irons. You emerge from your mum's place into the crowd of red-shirted flag-waving supporters, mostly Chinese. You have the sense this kind of groundswell of support for a politician outside of his home country isn't normal. Like, maybe these supporters were paid, but that could just be an American point of view, you're not sure. Further down the street, you see the vanguard of the parade. Robots designed to look like gods of the ancient Chinese pantheon. They wear Chinese opera masks, bear banners with river dragons on their backs, and twirl bare swords. The people are the heroes now. Behemoth pulls the peasant's plough. Behind the sword dancer vanguard, you see a troop of robots wearing the Chinese tunic suits, sometimes called Mao suits, and carrying little red books. They are the ones singing the song, now growing more insistent as the parade draws closer. Behind them, you see a legion of men in modern Chinese military dress uniforms. With the ancient past, more recent past, and the present covered, you surmise whoever comes next will be meant to symbolize China's future. And mountain ranges one by one rise red beneath our harvest moon. You are stunned to see that behind the Chinese army of the parade are a phalanx of robots that look like Arachne. The legion crawls down the street erratically, as if being in a tight formation does not come naturally to them. Each robot's masked head is decorated with a red star. In their Inspector Gadget arms they carry rifles. At the end of the parade, a Chinese man in a suit stands in an all-red winged convertible waving at the crowd. It is one of the sleek new Chinese-made flying cars, the Tian-8, a symbol of China's rise. You can see down the street that the parade is going to pass close to an anti-robot protest being held in the park. The unemployed hold signs that say things like, "I'm with the 99%, people vote, machines don't, and America is coming for you, China." You have a growing sense of uneasiness as this Chinese parade heads toward the protesters. Stay close to me, Arachne. Stay close, you tell Arachne. I'm not sure what's going to happen, but I don't want you harmed. Yes, Master. You soon hear a shot ring out coming from the crowd of protesters. A crimson splotch whirls through the Prime Minister's shirt, and he falls over into his Tian-8 dead. His robotic soldiers fire back into the crowd, who panic and flee in all directions. Some of the panicked protesters are carrying weapons, and they begin to fire at the parade. The parade goers farthest from the protesters flee, but the closer ones decide en masse to rush the protesters. Let's get out of here. Arachne nods. You run as the sound of gunfire intensifies. The Chinese contingent is massacred and the Chinese government vows vengeance. The first shots of the robot war have been fired. And that's it for chapter 4. What I wanted to quickly do before we end it right here is looking at our stats. We're 31 years old now. We're 80% human. We're a local celebrity and getting by. Arachne is good in autonomy and military. Okay in empathy. Not particularly graceful. All of our relationships with human people are below the average, except for Josh, who's kind of alright with us. Alright, there we go. That's it for this episode of Choice of Robots. I'll see you guys next time.